Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Sit Down presented by Visa. Today's guest is Vancouver Whitecaps striker Brian White, who joins us ahead of a fairly gargantuan tilt against CF Monterrey. All to play for on Wednesday on One Soccer. Brian, as always, we're so grateful for your time, especially in a busy week. I know you guys are shortly getting on a plane to travel to Torreon, not even to Monterrey, to play this match. So let's begin our chat there, shall we? This is a club that obviously you have grown up with now and have seen the near misses, LAFC, Tigres last year. After that second leg against Saprissa, that sort of bonding moment, the success you've had in the league, which I'd love to get to this point when you step on the field on Wednesday, what have you learned about these types of games and what is it going to take to get it over the line?
I think, the most important thing is when we look back on those moments where we played the big games in these big tournaments, that comes down to those little moments inside both 18s. I think if we're able to execute offensively and defensively within the boxes, I think we can put ourselves in a good position to win the game. And I think there's been moments in the past where we didn't, fully reach our potential in those situations. And at the end of the day, we lost those games. So hopefully we've learned from those mistakes and we can be at our sharpest in these moments on Wednesday.
I think it's often pretty telling when you're either in my position commentating the game, watching it with your friends, family, supporters in the pub. You can tell when the balance is swung one way or the other. In leg one, it felt like the momentum was pinned your way. And yet you can do all those good things. And if you don't get the goal or don't get the result, it can add even more pressure to an already pressure-packed situation. What was your take on that first leg from the dominance of the game, something ridiculous like 15 corners, having so much of the ball, so much joy, but not getting that goal until Bilal had a brilliant header, and it must have just changed the vibe?
Yeah, like you said, it could be a bit frustrating when you've had so much momentum, so much pressure building up in the game and not able to execute the final moments to really put the game to bed. But I think we take confidence in the fact we were able to get that goal. I think we take confidence that we were able to put on a really good performance. And so we take the positives there. We learn from what we could have done better, and we take that going into Wednesday.
You can only ever play the team in front of you. And with these continental competitions, through rest and injury and schedule balance, teams look different. There's no doubt that Rayados will look different on Wednesday than they did a week ago in Vancouver. And you start to think about the players that you'll have the opportunity to compete with. Sergio Ramos obviously jumps to the front of the page. Canales, Ocampos, this will be an A team for a team that has won this tournament 5 times. As a player, do you get excited to say, look, at the end of the day, I'm a professional. I'm going to go play football. But do you get to say in the back of your mind, I also get to try and score on Sergio Ramos on Wednesday?
Yeah, of course. Like you go, you watch those big games. Everyone watches, Champions League, World Cup. So, the caliber of these players, especially Ramos. So obviously it's something you look forward to and you're excited about. And I think everyone's really excited to just get out there and put their best foot forward.
Two-parter next for reasons that will soon become clear. I would be remiss not to ask you about seeing Ryan Gauld go down like that, and probably the 180 of emotions to be gutted for a teammate and a friend, but also relieved to hear that it maybe wasn't as bad as it looked at first. I guess let's start there. We know the importance that Ryan has to this team, that the two of you have when you're both on the pitch contributing. What was that sort of 5 to 6 hour window like when you're wondering, has our season kind of been derailed just as it was going so well, and then to get that news that, okay, maybe it's not as severe as we thought?
Yeah, I mean, the first initial, like when he's on the ground, he's getting checked out, you're going through the worst possible scenarios in your head, and it's difficult because you're in the middle of the game. Someone's going to have to come in and you're going to have to pick up right where we left off. But it's a relief definitely to find out it's nothing too serious. He was in pretty good spirits after the game, especially with the win. But we look forward to having him back as soon as possible because obviously he's the most important guy for us, and it's going to be tough. But we have players that need to step up, and they will do that. And I think everyone has confidence, everyone in the locker room, that obviously huge shoes to fill, but we can do our best to all stick our foot in it and see what we can do to get results while he's out.
Well, that next man up mentality is part two. There will always need to be someone to fill the position. We've seen it even with Sam going down for a few weeks, and then Tate Johnson comes in and doesn't look like a fish out of water at all. In fact, it looks like he might be running the school in just a short while here. What is it about this group and the depth that's been assembled over the years where you can put Isaac in net for a Can Champ or a Concacaf Champions Cup match? You can bring a Tate Johnson in, Ali Ahmed growing into this, Jaden Nelson, Pedro Vite, all these guys who are early 20s, not even mid 20s yet, that have really turned into professional footballers as you guys have really kind of grown up together.
Yeah, I think it's important that, I think they've gotten a lot of minutes early on, and that's helped them grow and matured. Um, it's one of those. I think professional sports is one of those things where when you get your chance, no matter how old you are or young you are, you have to take advantage of it. You have to do whatever you can to prove that you belong there, and if you're good enough, you're old enough, kind of the situation. So, we have a lot of guys that have grown up, metaphorically with the club and have progressed and kind of put their careers on notice. And it's great to see them develop and improve and help the team as they have. And I think we have a great group that's just looking forward to every chance each individual may get, whenever it may be, to really help the team in any way they can.
And when you're playing sort of an armchair GM or sporting director, it's easy to say, well, if I had unlimited budget, here's my all-star 11 that I'd like to build. And in MLS, it's okay if there's a DP slot open. Come on, president, go out and sign the big fish. Come bring them in. But there's also that pragmatic balance of developing homegrown talent. We just talked about some of those young guys. I hate the cliche is the solution in the room, but when you look across the room, is this team as it's constructed this year good enough to keep raising that bar and accomplish the things that obviously are important to the club? Just like we saw that some offseason change, there's a clear focus that this year is a big one for Vancouver Whitecaps.
I think, as a group, we're focused on what's in here. And that's all we can. We can't think like, oh, if we had this player, that player, whatever. If we, that's not our concern. We trust everyone in this locker room that whenever they're on the field, that they're going to do the business and help this team win. And that's how we have to look at it. And I think everyone's comfortable with that and confident in that. And I think we have a really good group that can really push the limits of what we can achieve this year.
Brian, I love these interviews to pick your brain and your colleagues' brain, but I always find speaking to strikers so fascinating because on paper, maybe other than goalkeeper, where their job is to just stop the ball, your job as a striker in large part is to score the goal. And yet within that position, there's so many different types and molds and attributes of what makes different strikers successful in their own ways. If you were to sort of flip roles with me right now and be the analyst, how would you describe Brian White as a striker and what has led to the success that's got you this new contract extension that's made you comfortable and one of the most dominant North American players in this league?
I think the thing that I think always, pride myself on is just working hard on the field, whether that's offensively or defensively. If the team needs me to run in behind, I'll run in behind. If it needs me to fight with the center backs and try and hold the ball up, I'll do everything I can to hold that ball up and draw a foul. If we need to press, I'll press. It's one of those things where I always found myself trying to do whatever I can to help the team. And fortunately, it's, I've been fortunate enough to have good players around me, especially guys like Ryan that can, help, cross the ball in pretty decently to give me a chance to score. So, it helps when you have good players around you for sure.
I presume that every season, certainly, but every game, even, there's something like, I'm going to try this today. This is a thought that I've had or something I've worked on and training. Let's see if it translates. That idea of development and being brave and trying to reinvent yourself always. What have you learned about the art of goal scoring that would surprise 20-year-old Brian White, that would surprise Timbits football Brian White the first time he kicked a ball? Like, what is it about this craft of yours that you're constantly rediscovering and learning?
Yeah, it's actually been a lot of fun. I've started really studying the position a lot more recently and learning how a forward can manipulate his movement to control defenders, how being able to scan better to make better decisions with whether to hold the ball up or turn and these kind of things. And I think as a player, you're always trying to learn as much as you can and try to improve it day in, day out. And for me, it's about learning what I can continue to add to my game. How can I improve my game. And it's been a real joy to really start really learning. Maybe it's maturity where I wasn't really interested in it as much when I was younger, but getting older, I really enjoy learning the position a lot more.
In conversation with Brian White of the Vancouver Whitecaps on the sit down presented by Visa. Brian, just to continue that sort of, or pull some more on that thread about learnings and maturity and how your career has ebbed and flowed. Obviously, you just recently hit a pretty big milestone with that well-deserved contract extension of yours in Vancouver until 2027. When you look back to the decision you made, obviously with your team, with your family, to commit to staying, and that person that was born and bred in New Jersey, got dealt by the Red Bulls, and how you've taken this opportunity with both hands. How do you sort of judge that turning point? And clearly it's something you're very happy with, this journey. Otherwise, you wouldn't have agreed to stay for a few more years.
It's been a real blessing. I think it could have been easy to stay in New Jersey and just battle it out, try and be a starter there. But to get the opportunity, whether I was ready for it or not, to come out to Vancouver and fight all over to prove myself as a player in the team and really earn that starting position, I think helped me mature a whole lot on and off the field. It's the first time I've been away from home, not living in New Jersey in my whole life, and it's been quite the experience, and it's been something me and my girlfriend have really enjoyed living out here. The team, the friends off the field, it's been a pleasure.
I remember it was probably 3 weeks ago, or maybe a month now, before like One Saprissa and where you guys were doing these junkets, and naively, I suppose, in my position, we're like, tell us everything we need to know about Jesper Sorensen, the ins and outs, the X's and O's. And a lot of you guys were like, dude, it's been like a week. Now that it's been a month and a week, Brian, under a new head coach, it's obviously seeming to click on the pitch. Club record start to the Major League Soccer season. Off the pitch, though, I'm curious what some of the differences are about the sort of sentiment in the camp and the group now that you've had that time and he's had the time with you. What are some of the differences between Whitecaps teams of the past and 2025 Vancouver Whitecaps?
I think one thing that's a bit different is that we take the game to the opposition more with the ball. I think our defending and our pressure was something we prided ourselves on in years past, but now I feel that we have a little bit more of a presence and a belief in ourselves with the ball that we can play through a team and score. And I think that's been, something guys have been able to build confidence off of from the beginning of preseason until now. And hopefully we can continue to build and grow because there's still things we can improve on.
And just lastly for you, Brian, I know I'm trying to cover as much as I can with you in 15 minutes here, but the only thing that I really haven't tried to get yet is thinking about the Stars and Stripes and the national team for you, because obviously Nations League's around the corner, Gold Cups this summer, World Cup in the building where you ply your trade professionally. Throughout this journey, this evolution, this maturity that you spoke to, how much have you been keeping an eye on the possibility to go represent your country again? After getting that January camp, the sort of initiation, you're in the prime of your career, you're hitting your stride. How much is that something that occupies your brain space when you're not focused on work?
Obviously, you think about it. It's always been a dream of every kid to play for their national team, especially in big competitions, to win a trophy. But at the end of the day, that decision is not necessarily up to me. Obviously, it's something that's up to the coaching staff, and all I can really do is do my best on the field for the Whitecaps to perform well, to make that decision for them tough. So for me, it's about focusing on what I can do here, and whatever happens down the line with the national team is what happens. It's not necessarily up to me.
Fair enough. Okay, Brian, we'll see you tomorrow or Wednesday, I guess, depends on when you're watching this, on One Soccer. I'll leave you with this. What's it going to take to get past Rayados and to keep this journey going?
More goals than they score.
Brian White, succinct, to the point, and clinical in the box. That's what I appreciate about you. This has been the Sit Down presented by Visa. We thank you, Brian, and we thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Thanks, bud.